Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Peace and love, everybody. Welcome back to the Travelers Podcast. Just want to say at the outset that we missed a few weeks. It feels like several weeks. And if you are if you're a regular enough listener to notice that we missed a few weeks, then you probably also know why. We announced a new album produced entirely by Ant. It's 17 songs. We have made 5 of those songs available for streaming now. And then me and Ant went on a tour, 22 cities, to promote the new album, to celebrate the new album, to celebrate all of our work together, and the fact that this Satisfied Soul album is the latest chapter in our story together, but it also is a really significant one that we really love and believe in. And so it was just an incredible experience. And you know, as I kind of transition back to life at home, life in Istanbul, I just want to sit down and reflect and unpack what that experience was like for me, because you all have had such a major and impactful role in this particular phase of my career. A lot of you all that listen to this podcast have been here for a long time, before there was a podcast. And but particularly since we've started this chapter in the last few years, you know, the way that people have been able to tap in is just so much more deep and profound, and it just resonates really deeply. I want to make sure I say from the beginning, before I go too deep into the reflection, we're brought to you as always by the Zakat Foundation, zakat.org. Zakat is the way that Muslims give back. It's the pillar of Islam, of charity, of sharing, of giving, of spending. And Zakat Foundation works all over the world. It's a Muslim-led organization, but they don't only help Muslims. They don't use the work to try to proselytize. They just do really, really dope work. So if you enjoy this podcast, if you've never been involved with the Zakat Foundation, please take this opportunity. Go and, $5 gets somebody a hot meal. $50 sponsors an orphan and their family, like all of their needs met. And there's all sorts of things that you can do. And as we get closer and closer to Ramadan, we're just a little bit more than 2 months out from Ramadan. For anybody that will be doing Ramadan giving, either leading up to or during Ramadan, please consider Zakat Foundation. It's really dope. And they're the ones that have sponsored this podcast from the beginning. So all these episodes, every single episode from day one has been sponsored by them. And we certainly hope it stays that way. Yeah, we love Zakat Foundation. Man, I don't even know where to start. I guess I'll start by saying that, okay, so the last time that I headlined a tour was in 2022. And then before that was in 2019, going into the early part of 2020, right before the pandemic. So nobody could tour for the first couple years of the pandemic. And then in 2022, we did the Travelers Tour, which was a tour to announce this podcast. We rolled it out and debuted it, had a few episodes. I think we had the Cornel West episode up. We had one with Imam Zaid Shakir. We had one with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, a few other people. Stokely from Mint Condition and Sa Rock, and we started with all these amazing people that I know, and we've had incredible guests over this time. But it's really important in this time of, there's not magazines anymore, there's not blogs anymore, there's not radio shows anymore, there are not TV shows anymore. All of these kind of centralized ways that we used to be able to get the word out. It's like there used to be Herb Magazine, and there used to be NowRight.com, and there used to be all of these, like I said, centralized kind of sources that would communicate to the whole community what was going on. And so if we got connected with those sources, then people there was an awareness in the community of people that liked our type of music. The awareness would be immediate, and if you hit all of those outlets, then it's like people are like, oh man, you're everywhere. Well, those things just don't exist anymore. So now it's just all the algorithm, and it's so corny and it's so whack, and I hate it so much. But one way that we know to get our listeners and our supporters, the people that are part of this music and movement and mission, to get everybody together is to do a tour. Because when we go on tour, there are people that maybe haven't tapped in with us in a long time. But it's like, oh, there's a Brother Ali show coming to town. I'm going to go to that. Because people have memories of like what these shows are and what they mean and how they feel and what those experiences are like. So there are people that come to the shows that don't even know any of the new stuff that we got going on. So, that's what we did with this tour, the Satisfied Soul Tour. But 2 years ago, I did the Travelers Tour to announce the podcast. That was the last time I headlined. And so that was the last time that I really got to talk to y'all, to you guys in person. And, last year I did the Grouch and Living Legends invited me on tour, and so I toured with them. But that's a different kind of scenario and situation. So this time we did VIP meet and greets. And this was my first time actually sitting in person with people that listen to this podcast. And to be honest, I see the numbers, every week when we post an episode, it's like, okay, 2,000 to 4,000 people listened on the streaming services, and then another, 1,000 or less maybe watched it on YouTube. So there's like several thousand people that listen each time we post an episode. And so I know that there are people that listen, but I didn't have the opportunity to sit with you guys and talk to you and hear from you. And I heard from so many people that are so tapped in with the podcast. And I mean, some of you know who you are. Like if you said that to me at these meet and greets, I need you to know that that really, really deeply impacted me. And I was so happy to be able to let BK1 know, like, man, there are people that really listen to and care about and are deeply invested in this podcast, which is dope because it's a lot of work to do a podcast. Just, even scheduling a guest is a major undertaking. And then to get everybody on the same page at the same time and to prepare questions and set up my studio and there's lights and there's, all this kind of stuff. And then we've got to upload everything and then somebody has to edit it. That editing process takes a long time. Then you have to upload it and then you got to come back and check on it. You got to answer the comments, all this kind of stuff. And to do that week in and week out is a major undertaking. It is a lot of work. And a lot of times, you all leave great comments and I really appreciate all of that. But a lot of times you just don't really get to see and hear and touch and feel the people that listen. So on this tour, I got to do that. And that was hugely impactful for me. So I guess I'll start at the beginning. It was really busy leading up to this tour. I did a lot of preparation. For a long time, when I left Rhymesayers 4 years ago, I had a partner started Travelers Media, which is a production company. And all that means is that when there's something that we want to create, that's the platform that we use and that's the team that makes it happen. And it's really me and BK1. And then we have different partners that we bring in for different things. So, at the beginning of this year, we released an album called Love and Service. That was me and BK1 and also the producer and the illustrator, animator, Unjust. And that album feels like it got ignored. It feels like it really got silenced. Unjust is a anti-Zionist Jewish homie. When we started making the project, that was just kind of a cool detail. But as we finished the project, October 7th happened. And so we made a song called The Collapse, and that became one of the main focuses. And then also, on social media, I was very vocal, like I've always been, about the Palestinian people and their cause. And so, that's a whole story that you've probably heard me tell, and I don't feel like telling it again. It's just not that interesting to me anymore. But we released a really beautiful body of work that some of y'all really supported, and I never want to undermine or discount or discredit, the people that did and have and continue to support that project, Love and Service, because I love that album. I am so proud of that album. I'm so grateful for that album. That album represents a really important part of my life and creativity and my work, and I'm so grateful and proud of that album. But I just feel like the majority of my listeners don't even know that it happened. I would imagine anybody that listens to this podcast has heard of it, though. So we started the year doing that. But then, I knew, even though I wasn't able to talk about it yet, but we made this album with Ant. I made 2 albums last year, 2 full-length albums that I love. It's some of my favorite work that I've done in my entire life. And I'm usually somebody that takes several years in between albums. So to do 2 albums in 1 year was like, I'm just like, man, I was on fire and I just couldn't stop. It, like, music was just pouring out of me. And I feel so grateful for that, So going into this album, what I was saying is that when I left Rhymesayers, me and BK1, who was my first DJ and my first partner, he was the one that really, first person to record me, the first person he actually introduced me to Rhymesayers. He and I started the production company, so when we make music, when we make merchandise, when we do a learning series like the Blood on Beats online songwriting workshop, all of this stuff we do together, and the podcast itself. So we do all of these things together. And then the other company that I have is Brother Ali Touring. And when I left Rhymesayers, it was with the understanding that I had a partner in that company as well, someone who had worked with me for several years. And we kind of had an agreement that, like, okay, we're going to step away from Rhymesayers and we're going to run this touring company together. And unbeknownst to me, like, this person has had a lot of changes in their life, and and I didn't realize that they were deeply dissatisfied, like, with the work and the situation, and like, I literally didn't know. I discovered by just kind of overhearing from other people that we didn't work together anymore, and that they weren't happy with. Like, literally, I had no clue. I had no idea. I had to call the person and say, like, yo, are you mad at me? And do we work together? And what's going on? And I don't want to get too far into it, but this is a person that is going through a lot of stuff on their own. I'm not the only one that they're having this kind of situation with. But I basically didn't know. I was starting to think about this tour, thinking that I had a partner in my touring company, and I didn't, and I don't. Like, I'm the sole operator of my touring company now. And so coming into this tour, like, literally all of the logistics and the planning and the visioning and, hiring the staff, and also all of the investment to do this tour was on me. And this is coming after a year, a really very, very challenging financial year, where we poured a lot of money into these 2 albums, and then we pretty much got shadow banned on the first one. And so Love and Service hasn't earned its money back yet. It hasn't recouped yet. And then also I had, for the first time ever, a year of no paid shows. So, effectively, we didn't have money coming in this year. And rolling into this tour, financing this tour was all on me. So, so we got this big tour, and then also Ant signed on to do the tour. Now, Ant is a dear friend of mine, but he's half of Atmosphere. And Atmosphere does an incredible amount of business. Their work schedule is really demanding. They make several albums a year. They're kind of always recording and releasing music. They make more music a year than they're able to put out, like, with any kind of responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could just dump music. But I mean, in order to give the record label enough time to really kind of put a plan together around all this music, like, they make more music than they can actually release. And they also tour all the time, and their business is 3 to 5 times bigger than mine. And so, Ant is away from his wife and kids a lot, and he's very, very dedicated. So for him to basically say, like, people kept asking, like, well, how come there's not an East Coast leg of this tour? Why don't you guys come to Europe? And, like, Ant was extremely generous to give me 5 weeks and say, like, this is 5 weeks in between Atmosphere tours. Like, literally our tour ended a week ago today, and he goes on tour in like 10 days. Like literally, he was off for less than 2 weeks, and he's right back on the road again with Atmosphere. So he was extremely generous to give me this time. And so it really meant, and he's going from a really well-polished, extremely professional, well-funded touring situation, coming into this situation with me where it's all on me. And I'm an artist, and logistics and planning and marketing and strategizing, I can do all of those things. I can do them. It's not that I can't do them, but they're not my favorite thing, and they don't come naturally to me. They're things that I've had to learn how to do. But again, I can do them, and I'm happy to do them. I don't mind doing them. But it really, Ant went from touring with Atmosphere, where they're on a tour bus. There's a big staff of people that are handling everything and making sure that everything's taken care of and making it extremely easy. So, Ant on an Atmosphere tour, he goes to bed, he wakes up in the city that they're in. He's basically got all day until like 4 p.m. To explore the city and go record shopping. And, we're both on a health kind of thing. So like he likes to go and get his juices and his microgreens and go to the record store. And he likes to put in at least 10,000 steps walking every day. And then he goes over to the sound check, and at sound check, all his equipment is set up for him, and it's already been, he's got people doing all of that kind of stuff. So he leisurely, on this tour, it's like you get up and you're in a van. And so you're driving for 6 hours a day. That's how you start your day. And then you get to the city and you got maybe an hour before you have to go do sound check, and you're doing your own sound check. You're setting up your own stuff. It's much more challenging and difficult. But it really was, there was a lot of concern. I don't want to use the word stress, but there was a lot of concern for me. It was very important to me that this tour be as well thought out, as planned out, as professional, as smooth, as easy as it could possibly be for Ant. Just because he's doing this out of love for me. He does not need the money. This is not a luxurious situation for him. He doesn't need to be on tour. Like, he's already on much bigger tours for the rest of the year. So he basically is like punching back in during a time which would have been his time off. He's punching back in to do something for less money, less luxurious, just because he loves me. And that's the bottom line. And so I really wanted it to be well done for him, especially. And it was really concerning too going in, because man, the way that people buy tickets is just different than it used to be. In general, my numbers are not what they used to be. And it was really concerning to me at the beginning of the tour. But my booking agent was like, yo, you should really know that everybody's numbers are down. I mean, the numbers for the big festivals are down. The numbers for movies are down. All of these artists and bands are on tour, and everyone's numbers are down. There are people that are huge acts that have been canceling their tours just because of low ticket sales. And so you should know that you are still a very solid, reliable, viable touring artist. Don't worry about it. Like, your touring career is not in jeopardy. Even though your numbers are down a little bit. And then the promoters were telling me the same thing too. So I'm like, okay, if these people are all saying this, I trust you, that's cool. But the numbers were not where they once were. So places where I used to sell 500 tickets, now we're doing 350. Places that we used to sell, 1,000 tickets, now we're working pretty hard to try to get 600. So if you saw me mega promoting the tour, I'm like making posts all the time talking about the tour. That's why. And then the other thing that was really a trip is that people seem to buy tickets at the very beginning and at the very end of the campaign. So like, we announced the tour, and every city sold 150 tickets right away. So I'm like, oh man, it's about to be cracking, because we're still 2 months out. I'm thinking like, okay, we're going to sell a few hundred, 100 tickets, 150 tickets a week until the show sells out like it used to. No. Like, what happened was, a third of the audience bought their tickets right away, and then a few trickling in throughout the course of the campaign to talk about the tour. And then the last day or two, and even the walk up, so many of the people came through on the walk up. So I get a ticket report every week, and I'm like looking at these numbers and they're not moving. And I'm like, yo, this tour is about to be a catastrophe. And I'm like already embarrassed. I'm like, why am I wasting Ant's time? You know what I mean? And is this going to be, because like, I mean, if, you know, with the amount that the promoters pay us, if it's just that first 150 people, then like next time I come around, they are not going to offer me what they normally offer. And like, man, am I still, is this going to be my last tour? Like, I'm really looking at these numbers like, man, what should I make of this? You know, but then we got on the tour. And as soon as we got out rolling, you know, the numbers were very solid. A lot of people were buying their tickets last minute, which is fine. You can do whatever you want, you know. But the first couple shows especially were a little smaller, but it's Montana. Like, we start in places usually that are not as high pressure. You know, these are not our number one selling markets, you know, so we want to get a couple shows under our belt. First, let me say, when I got to America, I landed in America on Election Day, and I was harassed for 2 hours by the immigration people. And I mean, it was one of the most infuriating, maddening experiences that I've had with them. And I've had a lot of experiences with them over the years. But this was just a lot of them playing head games with me. And eventually, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much, but that was a really very difficult way. And already, you know, I've lived in Turkey. I've lived in Istanbul for 4 years now. And the longer I stay away, the longer and more challenging it is to adjust when I go back to America. Because America is just a really, really bizarre place, man. It's not normal. It's not like the rest of the world at all. The energy is different. The way people interact is different. You know, also for the last 4 years, I've been living in a very traditional Muslim bubble in a Muslim country, in a traditional neighborhood. And so, you know, me and my friends, the way that we live, like, I almost never smell alcohol or weed. I'm almost never around a person who's under the influence of a substance like that. You know, and then I go from that into a nightclub situation. You know, I never see women's bodies. Like, I just never see that. And then again, you go from that to America, where everything is so overly sexualized, and you go into a nightclub situation and it's just very, very different. Men and women that aren't married to it, that aren't family, like, don't touch each other in traditional Muslim settings. You don't shake hands, you don't hug. And it's not that you're not friends, and it's not that you're not, you know, warm and supportive of each other. And like, you know, like, my friends' wives, like, I know that they love me. And our families love each other. And like, they know that I feel warmly to them. I'd do anything for them. But we don't hug each other. You know what I mean? So it's just so bizarre to like go into these situations where, you know, suddenly things that are normal in America, you know, and I've lived in America the first 40 years of my life, but something about being away for a while and then going back into that was just really, really kind of jarring, like, to be very honest. So that's the way that I started. And then I was able to go to the release party for Mally and Last Word. You know, Mally is one of my dearest friends. We actually have an interview with Mally that we will edit and post very soon, inshallah. But Mally released my favorite album of the year, which is The Sweetest of It All. And so I got to go to the release party for that. That was really beautiful. And yeah, my cousin came in for that. So there's like a group of dudes. It's my cousin Joseph from the Bronx, our friend Alex from Colorado, and Mally and me. And, you know, these guys started coming to Minneapolis during Soundset, and then they just stayed a crew. And when we moved away and Soundset wasn't a thing anymore, the three of them came to Istanbul. Alex has actually been to Istanbul 3 times, my man Alex from Colorado. And it's just, you know, it's really dope. So anyway, we went to Mally's show and we were able to see that. And I saw a lot of people in Minneapolis that I hadn't seen in years. I left Minneapolis with this feeling that I had become myself in that city. And for a long time, I felt really, really celebrated in the city of Minneapolis. I was a legitimate celebrity in that city. Me and my friends, me and Slug especially, but I mean a number of my friends, it was that way. Every time I left my house, somebody was going to congratulate me for something I had done. And it was, I just been in community, and what I thought was community for 30 years there. Between the Muslim community, I would, converted to Islam there, and I was an imam in that community. And me and my wife led a project called the Jamali Project, a community project to help people access the Islamic tradition. And so, yeah, either I would run into Muslims, or I also did a lot of like community organizing, political organizing, activism. So I would run into people from that world. And then also the music thing, or people that were fans of the music thing. So, I mean, literally, I couldn't leave my house without running into a bunch of people I know, or a bunch of people that knew me. And there was a lot of just positivity coming my way every time I left the house. People were paying for my dessert. People wouldn't let me pay when I went to the movies. People were, if we had regular tickets to some kind of event, someone would come and be like, "Brother Ali, I didn't know you were here. Man, come to the VIP section. You know what I mean? Come up. No, we got a box for you. You ain't get to sit and," you know what I mean? Literally everywhere we went and everything that we did. And then, there was the uprising, and also I was really struggling with rhymesayers. And then there was like a cancel culture thing that happened in the music community. And nobody said that it was my fault, but also nobody excluded me from it. They basically said the established artists in the Twin Cities are a network of abusers. They abuse women and they protect people that abuse women. And they're gatekeepers and they're stopping everybody else from succeeding. And it just was like, you're the problem. And like I said, nobody really came for me. There were a few people that said little things here and there, but nobody really was blaming that stuff on me. But nobody was also, almost nobody was saying like, "Come on, we're not talking about Ali," right? Because all the issues they were talking about were things that I had hinged my career on. It's like literally I've dedicated my life's work to this stuff, and now I'm being canceled for stuff that I don't remember anybody else talking about the whole time I was talking about it. You know what I mean? Like I was alone in talking about a lot of these things and sacrificed for a lot of these things. And it just really felt to me like, man, all of these circles that I felt like were communities that I had dedicated my life to, like they're not even, I don't know if they're communities at all, and they certainly don't feel like my community. And it felt to me like, man, we got to be careful about our expectations, because they say expectations are premeditated resentments. And I realized like I had the expectation that if somebody slandered me or something like that, that people would at least speak up for their experience with me. And almost nobody did. Almost nobody spoke up for me. I can think of one person that said something semi-publicly, and I can think of one or two people that even reached out to me privately. But for the most part, I was just like, man, is this even a community? And, and along with that, having the difficulty with rhymesayers and so when I left the city, it really felt like this went bad. I didn't have I had like a mourning and like a grieving with the city of Minneapolis that also just taught me a lot about life. And it taught me especially about reputation. Like your reputation amongst human beings should be seen almost like a material item. You can gain it, you can lose it, and it really doesn't have much to do. I was the same person, I was the same person 1 month where everybody thought I was great, or if people didn't like me, at least they were concealing it because they thought they could get something from me. And then during the pandemic also, a number of things changed. And so it's like, okay, these people maybe maintained fake relationships with me and my friends because they thought maybe we would do something for them. And then once once those things were taken away, it's like, oh, okay, let's go ahead and attack these people. So when I left the city of Minneapolis, it was with a certain feeling that was like, okay, I need to grieve this. I need to mourn this. And part of what the Satisfied Soul album is about is I went back to Minneapolis because I'm like, I'm not just gonna run away from this and not address it. You have to go and you have to sit with how you feel. You have to address things. You don't just bury them. And so I went there with that intention, and I thought, like, all right, I'll make an album about the healing process. But once I got there, I had already been gone for a few years, and I realized, like, I've talked about this on the podcast, but I realized, okay, I moved my family away. I moved my family to another country, to a Muslim country. We set up there. I've got a community there that I love. I have a life there that I love. I set up these companies, me and BK1, and also my former partner in the touring company. We set up these companies and they're successful. I'm financially independent. I always was worried about, can I run my own business? Can I survive as an independent artist without Rhymesayers? And the answer is yes. I've officially done it. It's just undeniable that yes, I did it. Even when I was just starting the process of making this album. Because it's like, I'm back in Minneapolis. Ant says he's going to make another album with me, one of my greatest friends ever in life. And I'm financing this all on my own. I couldn't believe it. And I went out for a walk around one of the lakes, and I was just walking and just crying in just sheer gratitude. And I realized, like, really all of the most important relationship is between us and Allah, like between us and the Creator, between us and the divine. And I realized me and like the divine, Allah, the Creator, the source, is so generous to me that I'm like, how could I be mad or sad at anyone or at anything? It's all okay. It's better than okay. It's all exactly how it's supposed to be. Everyone, I have no grudges against anybody. I have nothing to settle with anybody. There's people that if I were to see them, I may want to have a conversation. Like, hey, why did you cancel me publicly? And I did nothing but help you for like 15 years. And you had my phone number. And if you had these problems with me, how come you never mentioned it? How come we never talked about this? Why didn't I ever have the opportunity to know that you had these deep concerns about me, or you thought that I was somehow, not a good person or not a good thing, I may want to have those conversations, but I might not. Because I also feel like, man, at worst, I feel sorry for certain people, or I have empathy and sympathy for certain people that like, wow, you really missed the opportunity to connect with me. Like you didn't really understand what this was and who I am and who I was willing to be for you. You know what I mean? And it's because of some lack of something that you've experienced. I really believe that. And, so at worst, it's like I'm sympathetic to them. And at best, it's like, man, don't even worry about it. You know what I mean? I have no resentments or grudges against anybody, alive or dead. And that's the truth. And Allah knows that that's true. And so that's just such a beautiful place to be in. You know what I mean? And so, starting this tour was a big deal. And one of the things about it also was that, the Minneapolis show. So in any case, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but so we got on the tour and we got rolling, and I started realizing, and then also we rolled out the album, like the new songs started streaming. So 5 of the 17 songs are up, and, it's a beautiful thing. And so I got to see, that's what I was saying. We went to Mali's release party, and I got to see a bunch of the people from the community, and it was beautiful. It was truly, truly beautiful. I saw people that I just wasn't sure. Like, I don't know where we're at. And some of them were saying, like, man, this is my first time really coming to one of these for very similar reasons. Because I think the whole kind of music scene in the Twin Cities was like, man, I don't know who's who and what's what. That was a very, very destructive thing, not only for me and the people that were kind of like named, but for everybody involved. Because you have a situation where everyone's just coming at everybody and everybody's denouncing everybody. And I don't think anybody's having conversations in real time or in real life about any of this. I think it's all a social media performance. And people just thinking like, man, I had no idea that this person was being bad to his girlfriend, or he was, taking advantage of fans or whatever. I had no idea. And now I'm just hearing all these stories, and, we're in a place where we want to believe people that come forward and tell their stories and stuff. And it's like, wow, it turns out this person was, doing all this stuff. And so people are just like, well, I don't rock with that. I need to distance myself from that, But effectively what you had was just a bunch of people dissociating with each other and completely throwing away their relationship and doing it publicly in a public-facing way, not one-on-one with the person. But then what happens in a scene where all the people are still there? Like, everyone's still there. If you cancel somebody, like, they don't actually die. They don't actually disappear. They're still there. And so I got to see and just reconnect with a number of people, and that was really beautiful. And Mally's performance was beautiful. Him and Last Word did a really great job. And so then me and Ant start rehearsing. We rolled out on the tour, and it was just really, I can't explain what it was like to be on stage with Ant every day. I mean, this is a person who is just a source of pure joy for me. Like, Ant is just goodness in my life. Ant represents just pure beauty and love and support and hilarious, just joy. Like, I am just happy when that man's there. I'm never sick of him. I'm never irritated with him. I'm never mad at him. I've never judged him. I've never, and there was a time when our lifestyles were very, very different. Like, there was a time where, when I first met Ant, we were both married very young, and we both were, we believed in that. That was something that we believed in. Working class, get your hands dirty, work. Ant was a janitor, custodian. I worked nights loading and unloading trucks. I stocked shelves. I did a lot of that kind of stuff. I also had call center jobs, which was like the kind of like white collar bougie version of like working class back in those days. Cause I got the gift of gab. So I was great at, oh man, call center job? Psh, man, no problem. I'll put in a 10-hour day, no problem. I loved call center jobs back in the 90s, early 2000s, boy. Oh man, I kind of miss them. If those jobs were still around, I might get me a job from time to time. It was fun, man. I really had fun doing those jobs. Also, they hired a lot of black people, and so like a lot of this, a lot of my coworkers and stuff. Like, it was just fun, man. I loved having those jobs, but also, loading and stocking and all that kind of stuff. I did all of those things, and so when I met Ant, we were both married, and we were both married to black women, and we both lived in the hood, and we had a lot in common, and we believed in, you iron your clothes, and, you're clean, and you present yourself a certain way, and, all this stuff. There was like certain things that we just shared and believed in. But then we started touring, and when we started touring, Ant basically, neither one of us ever had like a typical like 20s. And so Ant, when it started touring when he was in his 30s, and he was single, and, he kind of had his 20s in his 30s. So there was drinking, and, there was a lot of it, and there was partying, and there was a lot of it. And that's not something that's part of my life at all. But through all of that, and also I would say that I was really into the like political thing, and Ant is just not on the same page politically that I'm on. Well, he's not on the opposite end either. He's just not where I'm at. And so, our lives were very different. Doesn't matter. The fact that we connected over music, we connect over who we are as human beings, And at that time, I felt like when Ant would drink, he would open up a little bit more. And he would kind of be a little bit more vulnerable with me. So anyway, Ant eventually about 10 years ago now got sober, and he got married, and he started having kids, and like he just had this like 180. And that's around the time that we made the All the Beauty in This Whole Life album. And it was really dope because we both went to the Bay, in search of the next chapter of our lives. And so that's where the next like kind of spiritual, religious chapter of my life started. And that's where Ant got clean and sober and did that whole thing. And so, you know, and then, a lot of therapy for both of us and all this kind of stuff. So now it's like, it's just sheer and pure joy to be with him. But even when he was drinking, even when he was smoking, even when he was, there were there was the company of women from time to time. And I will say he kept the women thing completely away from me. I never saw it. I was never around that. I literally never saw him with a woman. You know what I mean? I saw him drinking, I saw him smoking, but I never saw the women thing. He kept that completely away from me. Like to the point where I only assume, even at this point, I'm assuming that was the case. You know what I mean? Or he would, the stories would be told or something about that. But I never saw that stuff. And so, yeah, like just being with him and also performing our songs together. I was saying this on stage every night, but the music that we make together, and I think it's okay that I can say that it's the same for him and Sean Slug from Atmosphere. It's like you're making music with your best friend. And so you have these conversations, and I mean, BK1 is that to me as well. Like literally in my career, I work with two of my greatest friends that I've ever had, that there's just no one else like them, Like you talk about people that I am certain love me, and it has nothing to do with the circumstances of my life, has nothing to do with what I'm doing with or for them. Like they love the essence of me. Y'all already know I cry a lot on the show, but damn it. Like, man, these people love me and I love them, and we've loved each other a long time. And it's just profoundly beautiful to do my life's work with these people. But with Ant, it's like these conversations between us are what turn into the music. The songs that you hear, they are as vulnerable and authentic and real as they are because of the fact that these are conversations between dear, dear friends who have no secrets from each other, no filter. There's no presenting. There's no performing. It's like, this is just the raw, this is a person who sees me. This person knows me better than I know myself. He sees me in ways that I can't even see myself. And there's stuff that I have to learn about myself that he's known the whole time. And maybe vice versa. But man, so these songs come about, and these albums and this music in general, this like body of work is the fruits of a friendship that also is based in working together and making music together. And so to be on stage every night, just doing songs that I made with my dude, and so much of the time, like, Ant is 6-7 years older than me. And so in a lot of ways, when I first met him, and there still is this dynamic where like, I want his approval, I want his validation, and I want to make him happy. And I want him to love the music we're making. I want him to love the song that I make with the beats that he made. You know what I'm saying? I want him to feel good about it. And if he feels good about it, I feel good about it. And so we did all sorts of songs on this tour that I haven't done. My set hasn't changed a lot. It's one of the things I realized. My live set hasn't changed a whole lot in like 10 years. Like me and BK1 really built the kind of flow and foundation and structure of the set. And then after Brendan left, the partners, the DJs that I had are great, but they weren't really collaborators in terms of creating the set. We kind of stuck to the format that I created with BK1, and as we released more music, we just kind of switched out songs and, plugged in new songs, but the role that they were playing in the set was still very similar. And so if you saw me perform within the last 10 years, you probably saw a very similar set. The set there was a very kind of similar arc to it and structure to it and like a narrative to it. And some of the things that we've done, we've been doing them for years. And it's hard to get out of that, you know what I mean? And it's hard to do, especially when you know it works, when it's like, no, this works. So this time with Ant, I'm sorry, I'm just like listening for outside. Like I'm hearing some noise outside and there's no more calls for prayer tonight. So in any case, is somebody singing? Okay. The Istanbul, it's very unpredictable, really beautiful. So anyway, the set itself, me and Ant were doing songs that I never would have done. His approach to performing live is very different from what mine had been. Whereas mine was almost like a mixtape. Like one song goes directly into the other. You got to keep the energy high. You got to keep the people engaged in every moment. Like the hands got to be up the whole time. You constantly are giving them something to say in response. You're constantly getting them to sing along with everything. There's almost no breaks. Like in a 45-minute set, 45 to hour and a half set, like a song is like bang, 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 bang. Whereas with Ant, it's not that. With Atmosphere, they have a different approach to performing, where it's like you're at a concert and we're doing our songs for you and you don't have to necessarily participate in the same way. There's going to be some, call and answer, call and response sections. But for the most part, we're here to perform for you. And you can sing along or you can watch or you can, dance or you can do whatever you want to do. But we're performing for you. And in between songs, in between songs, there's applause breaks in between every song. And so it was a thing even throughout this tour where like a song ends and I'm like, yo, I want the next song to be like, boom, but Ant is thinking, no, let the people digest the songs. Let them clap. Let the applause finish. Like let them clap for the song you just gave them. And it really changed the perspective and it changed the types of songs I can do. Because there's a lot of songs that I love, but the people aren't hype and engaged and the hands aren't up all the way through the whole song. And so I'm thinking I can't do those songs. But with this shift, it's like, we started doing all kind of songs that we never did before, especially like more just like straight up rap songs, and those are some of the ones that me and Ant really have in common and that we really love. And so I was able to just do all sorts of songs and material that I have never really done live. So that part was dope. But just the joy of being on stage with Ant, like I just can't explain how amazing that felt to just be able to be in the middle of a line and turn around and this dude is like dancing along and singing along and he's scratching and it's just amazing. Also, Ant did something he's never done before, which is do producer set during the tour. So anyone that came to the tour, we didn't announce this in the beginning, but if you came to the tour, the first performance that you saw was Ant DJing and also a DJ producer set. So he's playing the beats, but he's also got elements of the beats that he's scratching in and manipulating. And, to a degree, he's kind of producing the beat for you as he goes. And so that's really rare. He's never done that before. And then, D-1 was on this tour and D-1 is just having such an incredible moment. And I had such amazing conversations with him. He won over the crowd every single night. I mean, you talking about somebody, and I mean this in the best possible way, but I mean, take advantage, it doesn't necessarily always sound positive, but he made complete use of and got the complete value. He made good on the opportunity of being support for a tour like mine more than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, he really got on stage, and I mean, he's a speaker along with being a performer, and he's an educator. So like in a 45-minute set, I think he only did 7 or 8 songs. It was like 1/3 rapping, 1/3 talking about his message, and then 1/3 selling himself and his stuff, which is what you're supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? And so I thought it was amazing. I thought it was incredible. And he came away with a lot of new fans. He also added so much to the value and the vibe of what was going on. It was just really, really dope. You know, having time with him and Ant being able to connect and talk and communicate. That was really, really dope. But my set, excuse me, I'm still jet lagged. I'm really struggling to settle back into life here in Istanbul. But my set was so much fun. I just can't. It's the most fun that I've had on stage in years. And, you know, nothing against anybody else. That is not a knock. All the DJs I've had have been amazing. I worked with Plain Old Bill, who also works with Atmosphere. There was a guy named DJ Snuggles, who was my DJ for a little bit. Incredible. Me and Snuggles had a lot of fun on stage, had great chemistry. DJ Last Word was the DJ for the longest period. There was a minute where I worked with a guy named DJ Precision from New York. I mean, all of these DJs, incredible. I worked with DJ Fresh. It's all fun. It's all dope. But there's just nothing like getting on stage with the guy that you made the songs with. And it's like we're doing our songs. And every single song was a song with Ant. We did some of the new songs. We did a lot of the old stuff, man. It was just so amazing. And also, like, you know, when you're just with somebody that like, man, Ant thinks I'm funny. And so I'm funnier when I'm with him. You know what I mean? Ant thinks I'm smart. You know what I mean? Like, I just happened to say at one of the meet and greets one time, I was like, you know, it's cool to be out here rapping because it's the only thing I'm good at. And he said to the audience, don't believe him. This dude is great at everything. I can't believe it. And then he just started listing stuff like, man, he can cook, he can make beats, he can do this. He reads and writes Arabic. He can get up and give a speech at a mosque. You know, I actually ended up giving 3 religious talks during the course of this tour. I did the Friday sermon in South Central LA at Islah LA. The audio for that one is actually up, but I also have video for that, for most of it, and so I'm going to post the video for that. And then I did a Friday sermon on the south side of Chicago at Iman, which was a big deal. Both of those are really very, very honored to do those, and they went really well. And then our own thing in Minneapolis called the Jamali Project. We had a gathering for the Jamali Project. So I did 3 religious talks, kind of impromptu, in the middle of a tour. You know what I mean? So Ant is like, man, this dude is good at this. This dude is good. And I'm just like, man, I didn't know he thought that about me. Like I'd never heard him say all of that, but I kind of did know that. You know what I mean? It's like, man, he just around somebody that, like, I'm at my best when I'm with him in a lot of ways, you know, and especially musically, and especially dealing with art and being an artist. And it's just, man, the greatest gift. So just joyful. And then we did those meet and greets, and I got to talk to you guys and see you guys and talk to you and hear from you. I mean, just amazing, incredible stuff. Every single night. It just set the tone for the whole concert. You know, and I will say that one of the main things is that the numbers were down a little bit, but when my numbers were at their height, I was a little bit uneasy with that, to be honest, because I'm like, man, this is the hot ticket in town for a certain section of the community, of the population. And a lot of the people, they're not really tuned into what we're doing. And there were a lot of people that had energy and intentions and thoughts and conceptions around what we were doing that I didn't share, and I honestly didn't like. And there's times where I'm like, man, some of these people like me for reasons that I'm not with, you know. But now it's not that way anymore. Every single person in the room knows exactly why we're there. And especially those VIPs. Like, I'm talking to these VIPs. I mean, these people have been listening to us for years. I met people that comment on every single thing. I met Maya Chavez. Yo, Maya Chavez, if you're listening to this, Maya, it was so great to meet you. And she was like super like shy and kind of, you know, very, very humble. You know what I mean? And shy in a good way. But like Maya comments on every single thing I've ever done. Maya listens to every episode of the podcast and comments on everything. And I got to meet her. It's like, oh, this is the person. Like I read your comments every single thing I ever do. And there's a bunch of people like that. And there was a person that came to the show. He was like assisted, he had a walker and stuff. And he said, you were my first concert and you're gonna be my last. Oh man, here it comes. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, the first show that I saw was you, I don't know, 12 years ago, I can't remember. I've been touring for 22 years, so like, I don't know how long ago it was, but he said that the first show was watching me. And he's like, man, you made me love coming to concerts so much, and just the vibe in the room, and it's a room full of people vibe, on a positive message, and, just hearing it all and seeing it all. And, he's like, seeing you perform, I just felt like I saw myself in you, and, just seeing you command the crowd and do your thing at such a high level and be so joyful and meaningful and, take a stand on messages. And he said, he's diagnosed with a disease. I can't remember what it was. Maybe cancer, probably. But he's like, my health is deteriorating really quickly. And I had to just be honest with oh man, dude, this is like, he said, I just had to really be honest with myself about the fact that I really can't go to concerts anymore. Like I just don't really have the stamina for it. And, I need my rest and things like that. And, he has a terminal illness, like the brother's dying. And he said, so right around the time that I just really fully acknowledged that to myself, this tour was announced. And so I decided this is going to be my last concert. And so he came to the show and we took a picture together. And, it's just like, man, what a gift. Like, what a gift that is. Like, this is a human being. This is a person. This is somebody's son and husband and father, maybe. And, this is somebody's life that's like, oh man, like, I've lived my life doing this. Like I've spent my life doing this. I spent a lot of time away from my children and my wife. And it's like this, I've dedicated my life to this. When my life is done, none of us know how long we have. But when my life is done, like I dedicated myself to Islam and this music. These are like the two ongoing themes of my life. And, so for somebody to be on this ride with me is really very meaningful. And for somebody to talk about what it has meant to them to be in the audience and, to basically say like, just to have that kind of like milestone is really big. Also, there was another extremely touching moment. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of really touching moments on this tour. But I was just happened to be telling Ant that Muhammad Ali, when I became Muslim when I was 15, I was offered the name Ali. Somebody suggested it to me. And I took it not knowing that, all the Alis in the world are named after the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who was also his son-in-law. He was his cousin, and he also married his daughter, Fatima. And then from the two of them, he's like one of the most important people in the history of the world, Imam Ali. May Allah ennoble his face. That's the particular honorific that we say when we mention Ali. But Ali married the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Fatima. And then the two of them had two sons, Hassan and Hussein. And then from them come the whole lineage of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So his lineage is still alive in the world, and they're all over the world. My sheikh is in West Africa, and he's a descendant of both Hassan and Hussein. And if you see him, it's like, okay, this is a black African man from West Africa. And I mean, there's Chinese people that are descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And there's, Moroccans, and there's Europeans. There's people with blonde hair, blue eyes that are descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It's really amazing. So in any case, yeah, sorry, I'm just a little bit overwhelmed here. But so when I was offered the name Ali, though, I didn't know about all of that. And so I took the name Ali really gratefully because of Muhammad Ali. Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali were the two main inspirations for me becoming a Muslim. And they have remained that way for the rest, on until today. And I was just telling Anthony that Muhammad Ali, as his Parkinson's got worse, I heard stories from his daughters about how when he knew that he was going to, people would ask him for autographs, and he got to the point where it took him a long time to sign his name, and it was very difficult for him to do. So he couldn't just scribble out autographs for everybody the way that he probably once did. So what he would do is, the night before he had an event that he knew he was going to be in public, he would take pamphlets about Islam. In the 90s, that was a big deal. Was like there was all these pamphlets about Islam. And man, actually I have it here. But there was so he would sign these pamphlets, he would autograph them, and he would just have a bunch of them ready so that when he saw people and if someone asked for an autograph, he could give them that. That he wouldn't deny them an autograph, but he also loved Islam and he wanted to share Islam with everybody. And I was just telling Ant about that. And at our show in Madison, which is my birthplace, which is where I was born, second to last show of the tour, a brother came up to me, and I'm so sorry if you're hearing this. I don't remember your name, but I remember your face. And he said, in 1995, me and my dad went and saw Muhammad Ali. And, his Parkinson's was in full effect and stuff. And, we had this thing. And we actually asked him for an autograph, and he gave us a pamphlet that said, what they say about Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he had signed it, and he gave it to us. And he said, I knew this concert was coming up. And he said that his dad, who took him to that show, has Alzheimer's or has some sort of dementia. And it's difficult for him to remember. But he said, my dad remembers seeing Muhammad Ali. And he gave me the gift of the pamphlet that's signed by Muhammad Ali. And it wasn't even a week before I was telling Ant about this thing that Muhammad Ali used to do. And it's probably the biggest regret in my life is that I never met Muhammad Ali. I could have very easily. I probably would have had to travel somewhere or something, but I definitely could have met Muhammad Ali. And I didn't. Even when Imam Zayd Shakir that I mentioned earlier was his spiritual advisor, his imam, and I knew that Imam Zayd was close with Ali. I knew that when Muhammad Ali passed, he asked for Imam Zayd to lead his funeral, and he did. And I could have met Muhammad Ali many times, and I don't know why I didn't. It's a legitimate regret that I have. I don't have a lot of regrets, but that's one. That's a pretty serious one. And so he gave me this brother gave me this pamphlet signed by Muhammad Ali. And there's also a photo in there as well of Muhammad Ali and Ken Norton. It was an event that the two of them did together. And, I said, this is such a huge gift that I almost wouldn't accept it. But the only reason that I will accept it is because I will treasure this for the rest of my life. And it's true. I'll treasure that the rest of my life. And it's here. Like, I've actually still got my computer back from the, let me pull it out and just look at it out. Yeah, here it is. Wow, man. What they say about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it's signed Muhammad Ali. And his signature looks good. And then there's a picture of Ali with Ken Norton. SubhanAllah. So many amazing occurrences on this tour, but I have to say that anyone that listens to the podcast knows that I had some nerves specifically about going back to Minneapolis and performing in Minneapolis, because all these years we always performed at First Avenue. How's my battery on my computer doing? Okay, I'm good. Over the years, we always performed at First Avenue. And when you are a musician from the Twin Cities, selling out First Avenue is the benchmark. It's like that is the litmus test for, does this city support me? Am I loved here? Am I supported here? I just have all these amazing memories of, Slug and Idea opening for Public Enemy. And then, me and BK1 opening for Mos Def, for Yasin Bey, for De La Soul. Chuck D calling me on stage to freestyle, me and Slug, to freestyle during their set at First Avenue. I remember the first time that Atmosphere sold out First Avenue. I was there. I think I might have hosted that show. But I remember the first time that, Atmosphere just sold out First Avenue. That was a big deal. And it was like a big deal for our community. Like, I wasn't even on Rhymesayers yet. But it was like, man, the people that were involved, it was like the hip hop scene here is significant enough that and Slug said it that way. He said, y'all sold this place out tonight. And it's like, yeah, man, that was a big deal. And I remember the first time I sold it out, 2004. There was an Iraqi artist that BK knew that the police had pulled him over and they beat him up and then they charged him with a bunch of stuff. I've had friends that exact same thing happened. That's actually the way my career started. One of my friends was pulled over by the police. They beat him up. And then they charged him with a bunch of stuff. Keith Ellison actually helped him sue the police department. He won a bunch of money and he gave me the $1,000 that I used to make the Rites of Passage tape, which is a big deal. Like, that's how my career started, So it's like, I know this story very well. And so BK said, well, what if we did a show at First Avenue and we do it we give the proceeds to him for his legal defense. I said, yeah, man, I'm feeling that. This was during the Iraq War. This is 2004, not long after 9/11. So it's like, yeah, let's do that. And then we went on tour with Immortal Technique, but we didn't play Minneapolis. And I asked Technique, like, yo, would you come to Minneapolis? We're going to do this show. And he said, yeah. And he came, and so we sold out First Avenue, first time ever. First time I ever headlined there, we sold it out. And then year after year after year, sold it out, sometimes twice in a row. But we would end our tours there, and it really was like this triumphant feeling of, just coming back and, being in the hometown, and that's where Prince shot Purple Rain. And it's like you're part of a legacy. You're part of a musical legacy. And, those kind of things really matter to me. They really do. To be part of something bigger than ourselves is really what life is about to me. And so, year after year we did that. I played it in 2019 with Evidence. And, that's when I was really struggling in my career. And I was struggling financially and physically and spiritually. That was a really tough time. And it didn't sell out, but it was really big, 2018, I sold it out. Pharoah Monch was there. We did a anniversary for the Shadows on the Sun album. And Pharoah came, and my wife was pregnant with one of our babies, so she didn't come. But my eldest daughter, who's now 16, she came. So that was dope, And just year after year, we sold it out. This year, I wasn't sure about it. I wasn't sure if the city still supported me. I wasn't sure if I even still had friends there. I didn't know what to think about it. I didn't know if doing it without Rhymesayers, how do we even get the word out about a show like this? But I figured, okay, we got Ant. When I booked the tour, I thought the new album would be out, to be very honest. I thought the new album would have dropped. And we postponed it a little bit because we're partnering with Mellow Music Group, which is a really dope hip-hop label that I really respect a lot, and I respect their roster a lot. Working with them has been really beautiful. It's so easy, absolute joy. It's been really dope so far. And, so they said, give us some time to really like spread the word about this album and give us some time to market it. And it's like, okay, you got it. So I asked them, actually, can we put some songs out so that when we go on tour, we can show people the new music? They say, yeah, let's do a 5-song EP, 5 of the songs, you choose whichever one you want, and we could do it like that. So put the show on sale, and then just watch the numbers just kind of trickle. And I was genuinely really concerned about it. I was just kind of resigned to like, it's going to be whatever it is. You know what I mean? All good things come to an end. All empires fall. All dynasties run their course. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a great run from 2004 to, 2019, either sold out, sometimes sold out multiple nights. 2019 wasn't sold out, but it was packed. One of the things too is that they moved the capacity. They kind of moved the bar on us. So First Ave used to be 1,200 people. They renovated it, and now it's 1,550. So they moved it. It's 350 more tickets you got to sell for it to be a sellout. But I'm like, okay, we're gonna see what's up, and we put it on sale. And then also it's a door deal, so you get paid based on how many tickets you sell. If you sell it out, then you have a very, very financially lucrative night. But if you don't, then you get paid a percentage of how many tickets you sell. So put it on sale, and I'm like, you know what? It's just going to be whatever it is. And we rolled into that night, and it was sold out. So in reality, just to full transparency, we sold, I said it's 1,550 tickets. We sold 1,523 tickets, I think they said. But we also had a big guest list, and normally if it was anybody else, we would have had to not sell that amount of tickets because there's a legal capacity for how many human bodies can be in the room. So we had like 100 people on our guest list because ended up like Rhyme Sayers got to do a full guest list. I was like, you guys do whatever you want. All the artists and everything like that. Mally was with us on that one, which was a really beautiful thing too. Because Mally's been such a part of this whole journey with me, and it's legitimately my favorite album of the year is Mally and Last Word, the sweetest of it all. And like, I would have loved for Mally to have been on the whole tour, but he was the support on the last tour that I did, and I just didn't want to do the same support 2 years in a row, or 2 tours in a row, even though I did want to. I just didn't think it would be wise to do. So asked Mally to come and do that show. And so, yeah, it was the guest list normally would have meant that we would sell less than 1,500, tickets would be available. But they're like, we're going to let you. So, we sold 1,520-something tickets, but had 100 people guest list. And they said, for anybody else, this would have been sold out. We would have been turning people away. It's just that because we have the long-standing relationship there, they let us do certain things. They kind of let us slide on stuff. But they said, this is a sold-out show. You sold out First Avenue. And, I saw a lot of people that I hadn't seen, and honestly, there were some people that didn't come. There were some people that I reached out to and said, like, hey, I would love to see you, but, no expectations. But I love you, I miss you. People I haven't seen since I left. And some of them didn't respond to my messages, and they didn't come. But the whole thing, including that, felt like a confirmation that this point in my life and career, this chapter, was the right thing for me to do. I didn't do any of this stuff to try to show or prove to anybody or to make a show out of it. Like, I wasn't like, man, I'm going to come back. And then part of it too is like, I've lost like 60 pounds at this point. And not only that, but have gained muscle. And like, it's without any supplements and, you know, like medication or anything like that. No disrespect. Where it's a struggle for everybody. And I have homies that have done Ozempic and things like that. And I know it's like in the music industry and the entertainment industry, it's a big joke and everything and whatever else. I understand and respect everybody's journey for how they try to get well, because I know that for me, I had a dedicated therapist just for talking about food and my body and all of that. So like, it's no joke, and I mean, part of it is I moved to another country where like we don't have Haagen-Dazs here. It doesn't exist. There's not a pizza here that's really gonna entice me. You know what I'm saying? Like the food here is just not it's just not what they call big back energy. It's just not that. You know what I mean? Like the food here is like meat and rice and, it's just not about that. A person can get and stay as fat as you want here. And actually, in America, like when we go on tour in America, like every day we go to Whole Foods. I don't love Whole Foods. I don't believe in Whole Foods. But in terms of convenience and being able to go every single day, like, man, when I'm on tour, I eat one meal a day and it's salad and fish that I make and like a turmeric shot and a ginger shot. Sometimes I'll add a full avocado. Sometimes, like maybe twice a week, I'll eat fruit as well. But like, that's what I live on. And then only water and 2 cups of coffee a day, 2 cups of black coffee a day. And the rest is just all water, not even sparkling water. When I'm on tour, I'm extremely disciplined. And it's fine. It's very easy to be that way because of how convenient it is. In Istanbul, it is a little bit more challenging because it's just, the healthy food is not as readily available. You can't get a good avocado. It's just not as easy to get. The spinach is not washed. You know what I mean? So like, I can't tell you what a luxury it is to just walk in off the street, buy a bag of spinach. You can take it home, put olive oil on it and start eating it immediately. Here, you've got to like wash your spinach. Some of it there might be worms in it. It's just a different thing. This is not the first world that we live in. So there's different situations, But in any case, it wasn't my intention to like show everybody or show anybody anything. Like I did these things because they felt like the next best thing for me to do. It felt like, okay, now I have the opportunity to get well and to be healthy. And I was saying that I did it without any medication. I did it without any, no surgery, no, what do they call it? Supplements, like none of that kind of stuff. It's all just eating the right food. I walk between 15,000 and 20,000 steps a day. I have a trainer. I go to the gym 4 times a week. I do calisthenics. I eat once a day. Like I just have changed my lifestyle. I just have a very, very different relationship with food and my body. And so I didn't do any of this to look a certain way to other people, but it is true that, and I feel like Allah just wrote this, that it would become apparent and manifest, that it would be shown without me intending to show it. But it's like, coming back and having a triumphant return, sold out. I mean, there's something about 1,500 people in the city that you live singing along with you. And then I can't even see it all. So I didn't even really take it all in until the next day or that night when I saw people's Instagram stories. And I'm like, man, the hands are up all the way to the back. Every single person in there is singing along. Every single like every hand is in the air. Everybody is completely locked in and doing it with Ant. And everybody's saying like, man, you look amazing. You look so great. And I just saw the people had a different energy with how they talked to me. People that I've known 20 some years. There was just they were respecting me and honoring me in a way that I was new. and the way they were engaging me, you know. And it's like, man, I came here and blossomed. Like I came here and put the work in, and it was very hard and very uncertain. And, you know, me and my family came here and we flourished and we thrived, you know. And financially, I mean, you know, financially, we're not killing it. Like, we're not rich. We're not well-to-do. We're not even well-to-do. We're not even comfortable, like, to be honest. Like, you know what I mean? But I always say that if you can pay your bills doing what you love and not working for somebody else, that's rich. I don't care. Even if financially it's not. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are some things that we get to do, but a lot of it is because we moved to a not first world country. You know, so our like two little girls go to a private Quran school. You know, I've got an office here, a studio here. I didn't have that in America. There are certain luxuries that we have, you know. They're not crazy, but, you know, and then also my wife next month is taking her exam so that she can start her private practice as a therapist. And it just, you know, it just feels, this was a big move. And on paper, it might not have made sense. And there's just been way too many times that I've done something in my life that didn't seem like it was a layup. It maybe didn't even seem wise. There's been multiple times. I mean, one of them is just becoming a Muslim. It's like, what do you mean? In 1993, 92, like this, like, you know, this like European American, white American, you're going to become Muslim? You know what I mean? In a black American, like in a black inner city community. And like, yeah, I did. And I became an imam in that community and, you know, married in that community and all this stuff. Like, you know, it's official, like, you know. And then you're going to be a rapper? Like, how's that going to work? But I've been doing this for 20 some years. And I've toured with all my heroes. Like, I know all my heroes. I can call all my heroes on the phone without exception. And they're happy to hear from me. And I've toured with a bunch of them, and I've made music with a bunch of them. And I've, you know, been in the Billboard charts, and I've played at all the big festivals and been on TV, everything. It's like, you know, and then this part of it, like, you're going to leave. Okay, so you're part of the most sought after, like, team and label in underground rap, and you're just going to leave and do your own thing. You don't have to. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you're going to move to another country, you don't know anybody or speak the language, and you're broke and you can't go on tour. It's a pandemic. Yes. It's just so many times that I've wanted to do things that didn't make any sense on paper, and they've all worked out. Honestly, my wife is another, like, meeting my wife and us having we met at a show in New York. She was an Atmosphere fan. She was cute and 21 and working at Victoria's Secret, and, you know, just decided to be sober and, you know, come out of the, like, lifestyle that she was in. And she's from the Bronx, and, you know, friends were telling me, like, this doesn't seem like, and I met her and I was still married to my first wife legally. Islamically, we were divorced, but I was still married to my first wife and had a son, and my career hadn't taken off yet. And, you know, and she was 21 years old. I was 26. And within 24 hours of meeting her, we were talking about the fact that we were going to be married and live together. And she moved to Minnesota. And, you know, on paper, it didn't make sense. And here we are, 21, we'd celebrate our 21st anniversary. So we're in our 22nd year together. And, you know, It's just over and over and over again. And like I said, I didn't do these things so that I could go back to Minneapolis and show everybody, but that happened for me. I believe that Allah did that for me. And also, by doing that, also showed me, you're doing good. This is working. You know what I mean? It felt like such a confirmation. And for so much of my life, a lot of my work in therapy and also a lot of the like weird relationships that I've had, a lot of the like, I had very imbalanced relationships. And that's what, when I started making the changes to become more healthy and seeing like, can these relationships become healthy, sustainable, reciprocal? Some of them could. Some of the relationships didn't need to change. Some of them did. And the ones that needed to change, some of them changed. The person was willing to do that change with me. Some of them, the person just couldn't. But I showed up in most of my relationships completely pouring into other people without even paying attention or tracking, is this person reciprocating? Are they showing up for this relationship as much as I am? And it's just because I had a very low sense of self, and people say, well, it doesn't seem like that. You get on stage and whatever. Man, most people that get on stage and completely do their big one on stage, it's because we are seeking validation so strongly that like we're going to get amazing at something so that we can get on stage and no one can say that we're not accepted. No one can say that we're not valid. A lot of us put this much work and effort into being amazing at what we do because we're seeking that validation because we don't feel it in our lives. And so, for me, I had a very low sense of self. And so I kind of felt like rejected and invalidated and unwanted by the people that were supposed to want me. My family, my racial group, my country, my whatever. I felt like that's how I felt. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that that felt extremely real to me. It felt like the realest thing in the world to me. And then I was accepted by other people and I was loved and cared for and looked after by other people racially. But then also it transforms into so many other relationships where, when somebody would just deal with me, I was like so happy and grateful that I was like, oh, let me give you everything, because I didn't think that I was worthy of somebody relating to me as equals. And so I just had relationship after relationship that were really imbalanced and really incongruent and not reciprocal. And so some of them couldn't make it. But then I always was like looking for like father figures or like parental kind of figures. People that could say to me like, no, you're doing good. No, good job. And one of the things that I realized when I moved to Istanbul is like, man, I did not have the greatest relationship with my dad, and I didn't have the highest opinion of my dad. And in some ways, a lot of what I have done in my life has been to prove that I'm not him. You know what I mean? I'm different from him. I'm the opposite of him. A lot of it, that I just uncovered in therapy is about that. But when I moved to Istanbul, I was like, man, my he passed away back in 2010. And I'm like, man, I wish my dad could see this because he would think this was cool. I think my dad would think it was cool that I moved to such a different place. You know what I mean? Like we live in a culture that is very different. Like it is not America, and it's not Europe, and it's not Australia, it's not Canada. You know what I mean? Like I know people that are like, yeah, I'm going to move out of America. I'm going to move far away. They go to Europe or Australia or New Zealand or something. It's like, yeah, that's just another white place though. It's the same idea, you talking about you go to West Africa or you go to, like there are places that are very not America. And I live in one of those places. And I just realized that like when I was there at First Avenue that night, I realized there's nobody for me to go report to and say, look how good I'm doing. and for them to validate me. For the first time in my life, there's not that. Now, I do have a sheikh who's like my father, Dr. Omar Farouk Abdullah, and my mistakes aren't to be blamed on him. But he's like a father to me, and he's one of the people in life that loves me purely, and I love him. I mean, and I waited for a long time to say to this man, we do have a father-son type of thing. But that was one of the relationships that, like, he would not receive me being imbalanced or doing too much with him. You know what I mean? He wouldn't allow me to elevate him in a way that, like, he just didn't need it. He didn't need there to be this kind of like weird he just didn't need the weirdness. And so he never picked up his end of the couch in that regard. You know what I mean? So like when I started to change and get healthier, it's like our relationship didn't need to shift. So like me and Ant did not need to shift either. Me and Slug kind of did. Like I looked up to Slug so much and I like elevated him and I put him on a pedestal and like really elevated him. But then when I needed to shift, he was there for it. He was happy about it, supportive of it. Like when I needed to be his peer and he could totally do that. He was totally fine with that. A lot of people weren't, But man, so yeah, even with Dr. Omar, who is my sheikh, like we have a formal commitment to each other that he's going to help guide me and that I'm going to submit to his guidance. We have a formal agreement like that. He's my sheikh. But it's just, there's nothing weird about it. And even in that thing, I just realized like I'm in a position now where I literally am doing these things between me and God. And because I, for the first time ever, believe that I'm worthy of doing them. And the things that I'm doing, like I said, I didn't do them to be seen. I've been on this fitness thing for over 3 years. And one of the things that I realized in the first couple years is that I would work out pretty good and pretty consistently and hard, and I would be pretty disciplined when I had a thing where I knew I was going to be in front of people. So the Travelers Tour, I'd lost some of the weight before the Travelers Tour. But then after the Travelers Tour, I would come back and I would fall off from going to the gym. And I would just start eating kunafa and burgers and, the things that are here in Istanbul. And I had to realize like, oh, I'm still doing this because I want people to see me losing weight. Or I want people to see me doing better, looking better. Or I want to be on stage. I want to feel good when I'm on stage in front of people. And I realized like, oh, that's not it. You know what I mean? So the point where I really turned the corner is where it's not about that anymore. It's really about me wanting to feel a certain way. It's really about me investing in my body in certain ways and in my life and in what life feels like for me just because I want to feel like that. Just because I believe I'm created for that purpose. Like, I don't think any of us are created, for being mediocre. I don't think that any of us are created. Like, we limit ourselves. The Creator didn't limit us. And religion is not, true, honest, the Sharia of Islam is not limiting us. And, none of these things are but we limit ourselves by having we have a low view of ourselves. And that certainly was true for me. So it was just really an incredible experience that it's hard to put into words. And I've been trying to like kind of process it since I've been home in Istanbul. And it's been hard to transition back. Just going from being so busy leading up to the tour and then the tour itself. And then I came back and literally, there's nothing I have to do. There's absolutely nothing that I'm required to do at this moment. there's things that I really should do, you know. And one of the commitments I made is to really kind of recommit to this podcast, especially after hearing from so many of y'all how important it is to you and how much you're listening, you know. And so my commitment going into this new year is to really, really rededicate myself to the podcast and to be more consistent and to have guests. There's a lot of guests that I want to talk to, and I really want to grow this podcast, you know. But it's been a bit challenging to transition back into life here. The jet lag is really bad this time. And I think it's because on tour, my sleep schedule was so weird. So that's why I'm like yawning. Sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry for yawning during the podcast. It's rude, but yeah. So this has been a beautiful, beautiful thing. There's episodes of the podcast that are recorded and ready to go. My sermon from the South Side of Chicago is completely recorded and ready to go. I have a full episode with Mally. Me and Mally talked for over 2 hours. And so we've got that that needs to be edited. And then me and Ant actually sat for like 2 hours and had a good conversation towards the end of the tour. But like while we were on the tour, we talked. Yeah, and then there's just a number of guests, a number of people that I already have commitments from. And I can't wait to share all of that with you. But I just really want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart, like the people who weren't, for people who came out to this tour, who were able to be there, the people that did the VIP. It really means a lot to me. I just can't express in words how much this particular tour, maybe more, I don't know, there's been several tours that have really felt monumental. Like I will never forget this type of thing. This past 5 weeks of my life, I will never forget. And especially that night in Minneapolis, I will never forget that. It was such an incredible gift that was given to me by the Creator, but also every single one of y'all, you know. Ant has a barber that, I don't even think this barber cuts his hair, but Ant's wife owns a really cool store in Minneapolis, and there's like a community of like store owners in that neighborhood. And there's a barber in that neighborhood. If I'm understanding it correctly, I might be way off with this whole thing. But that barber, I think, doesn't go to a lot of events, but heard me talking on the podcast about how nervous I was to do First Avenue and how I was hoping it went well, that he actually went and bought tickets and came to the show because of that. And there probably are a number of people that did that. You know what I mean? Probably, I'm guessing that if I heard that one story from him, who knows how many people heard me say on the podcast, yo, I'm nervous about this. And they're like, you know what? Let me hold Ali down, man. And that stuff means a lot. That really, really means a lot. We had, I mean, every single show on the tour was great. Some of them were just unforgettable. Some of them were so fun. I felt so free on stage. I felt so good on stage. I felt so myself on stage. And the audience is just like, it was smaller, but like I said, it was just the exact right people that knew exactly why we were there. And so thank you all for everything. I appreciate you beyond words. I really love you. Like when I say that, I really mean it. I have tremendous love for the people that have been part of this, you know. Part of the reason that me and my dear friends can make music and work on these projects together and put them out so vulnerable and real is because we're doing what we're doing from the heart. You know, even BK1, when he's, you know, doing something like fulfilling an order, that comes from the heart. That man is doing that because he believes in what we're doing. He believes in me. He believes in our connection with y'all. He believes in our connection with each other. He believes in, you know, this is real to us. We do this because it comes from our soul. And so the fact that you guys listen the way you do, that you care the way you do, that you receive it in your hearts the way you do, that means a lot. But then also the fact that you support us, The Satisfied Soul tour was on 2 credit cards that are both have my name on it. And also, you know, me putting money into the tour that I really didn't have like that, you know. And the beginning of the tour was like, you know, we do a show, we take that show, deposit it into the bank account, pay the credit card down so that when we roll into the next city, we can cover the hotel rooms. And then we do that one, and then, you know what I mean? And then we deposit the merch money, and then, you know, so everybody that bought a ticket, everybody that bought merch, everybody that has liked and shared and subscribed, everybody that's subscribed to the email list, all the caravan members. Oh, let me not forget that. So the upper tier of our caravan is like our Patreon. And the upper tier is called the Trailblazers. And, you know, Trailblazers came out to a lot of the shows. You know, they always, everything that we do, we try to offer it to them for free if we can. So like when a new album comes out, they just get it for free. When we do our learning series, they can enroll in it for free. You know, we go on tour. It's like, let me know which show you want to come to. It's you and a guest for free, plus the VIP experience. And so a number of people, so my man Chris Jeffords came out to multiple shows. But the last 3 shows, my man James, who's from DC, my man Vince, who's from Wisconsin, and our friend Crystal, who's from the Bay Area in California, all 3 of them came and did the last 3 shows together. They like rode together. It's a trip that the group's called the Caravan, and they literally like traveled together because we're travelers, it's travelers. And they literally traveled together for these last 3 shows. So they did Chicago, which was crazy. Chicago was amazing. It was really, really beautiful. It was a good turnout, amazing crowd. I mean, you know, we had something like 50, I think we had 50 VIPs that night. You know, just beautiful. And then Madison, so it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday was Chicago. I did the Friday sermon on Southside that day, and then did the show that night. Saturday was Madison, and Madison was beautiful. And then Sunday was First Avenue. And so, yeah, James and Crystal and Vince's wife came to all 3 shows. Chris Jeffords came to multiple shows. But yeah, we had a bunch of people. My man Tom came out. My man Ted came out. You know what I'm saying? Really, really beautiful. It's so present and like real in my heart right now, that this work that we've been doing and the fact that you guys are part of it, it's just a major, in a lot of ways it's life defining, you know. And this past chapter and all of you that have been part of it, it means so much to me. So I really love you. I really pray for you. I really appreciate you. Stay tuned. We got great podcast episodes coming. And yeah, there's a lot more to tell you about. Go and check out Zakat Foundation, zakat.org. Please, if you haven't done it yet, go do something with Zakat Foundation, please. Today. Do it today. We love you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.